And I just want to introduce to you today, as an ArPA member, your lobbyists. This is Mr. Randy Thurman, who was a member of the Arkansas House of Representatives from 1989 to 1994, serving in the area around my favorite part of Arkansas, Heber Springs, near Gooseberry Lake. Mr. Thurman has a bachelor's degree in political science from UCA, a master's in public administration from the University of Arkansas Fayetteville, and a master's degree in human resource development from Webster University. Randy served as executive director of the Arkansas Environmental Federation from 93 to 2023, working with industries, utility, and public policymakers on issues related to the environmental protection and regulatory compliance. Randy is a founding partner of Government Solutions, LLC, a professional lobbying firm established in 1999. They provide full-service government relations for some of Arkansas's largest companies and professional associations and coolest professional associations like ArPA. Courtney Shepard also served 6 years in the Arkansas House from 95 to 2000. Including a stint on the City, County, and Local Affairs Committee as chair. He's also served in the Transportation, Revenue, and Tax, Joint Energy, Legislative Council, and Rules and Regulations Committees. Mr. Shepard is recognized for his knowledge of electric deregulation, water conservation, timber, oil, gas, recycling, real estate, information technology, health, and tax issues. Woohoo! He received his bachelor's in science degree in history from Southern Methodist University and attended graduate school at the University of Arkansas Fayetteville. Well, we have some on Fayetteville. He has extensive experience as a small businessman in real estate and nursing home administration, served in El Dorado City Council. He joined Government Solutions as a full partner in January 2001. He's also a former president and board member of the Arkansas Society of Professional Lobbyists. So today I asked our friends, Randy and Courtney, to enlighten us, give us some information, teach us about the importance of government relations, legislative advocacy, and inform us about some of the things that are happening in Arkansas right now. So I'm going to let you guys take it away.
Hey, thank you. Tisha, appreciate that, and Courtney, appreciate you being here to help me with this.
Stand behind you.
Courtney's the closest thing that we have to the late Chris Christopherson. You know, he kind of has that look of an old dead guy, right? So, anyway, going to tell you a little bit about lobbying in general. I know for some of you it's familiar territory, and most people have a lot of misconceptions about what lobbyists do, and hopefully we can come away with a little better idea of what we do and what you can do and what you need to be prepared to do, because it's going to be an exciting session coming up, I think. All right. There we go. Got it. That's our contact information. You'll see that later on. So what do? First of all, you can very easily be a lobbyist. We are two of over 300 registered lobbyists in Arkansas, and if you want to do your math, there's only 135 legislators, so we outnumber them. We seldom get our way, but we do outnumber them. And why are there so many? Well, there's a lot of interest out there, but there's a lot of them that are registered because of the extremely low threshold that Arkansas law has that requires you to register as a lobbyist, and once you get registered, to report your activities financially on behalf of your clients. So you see up here, I think it's if you spend or receive, did I put that up there? Maybe not. $400 per quarter, then you have to register as a lobbyist. And you think, well, that is low, but what if I'm just driving up from, Hot Springs to watch the legislature for a couple of days and go to a committee hearing? Well, your travel and your hotel room and all that other good stuff adds up. And if you're going to do that more than a couple of times during a session, you probably need to register as a lobbyist.
And err on the side of
Exactly.
caution, do, you know, if you're wondering, register or talk to land use committee.
In most cases where you have a contract lobbyist who's out there representing you, like Courtney and I do on your behalf, your coming to the Capitol is not going to be questioned by anyone. You're there to meet with us, you're there to talk to legislators, but it's not, you know, you've got somebody already fronting for you, so you really don't have to worry about it too much. So what do we do in general? We lobby individual legislators. We sometimes testify before committees. We don't like to do that because frankly, we're the hired gun and they know that. And they give us a hard time when we're there. Legislative receptions, we do one or two of those per session. And that's a good opportunity to meet people and schmooze and tell your story to open ears. We are your eyes and ears and sometimes your voice at the Capitol, not just your, but all of our clients. We have a dozen clients. We provide intel, research, planning, and advice. We coordinate bill passage when you need a bill passed. It's a fairly complicated process. It's not out of the question for private citizen to do it, but there are some kind of boxes you got to check as you go. You don't want to offend anyone while you're doing that, so that's what we try to help you with. We also help with coordinating bill passage and finding sponsors. You know, it's always good to have a great sponsor for a bill, and you guys have had great experience with sponsors in the past on some legislation that you had, and we'll talk about that. We build alliances. The best thing about lobbyists is there's so many of us. You're bound to find someone else out there, and sometimes a lot of someone else's, who have very similar interests. And every once in a while, you'll stumble across someone who doesn't like what you're doing, and they've got their own group, their own association. So you got to kind of sort through that stuff as the sessions go and as bills are filed. We track bills. That's sort of my nighttime job, 7 days a week during a session, is to read the bills that are filed and to literally, electronically, put them in stacks. Speech pathologist, Exxon, Toyota, psychologist. And I read every bill that's filed that day, and there are hundreds, in many instances, bills, and I stack them. I don't always read them in depth, but if they seem dangerous or exciting in any sort of buzzy sort of way, I will flip yours to Tisha and let her know that this has been filed today. We'll get back to it, but have your people look at it. It may not be anything, but to me, it raises the hair on the back of my neck, you know. We track bills, we report on those, we coordinate client efforts, and of course, there's always the issue of campaign finance. Many people have the idea that we walk around with pillowcases full of cash, and we hand those out as we go. That was a few years ago. That's not the way it is now. But campaign finance is very restricted now. The only money that a candidate can accept would be individual money, no more corporate money, small business money, clinic money. Or if you have a PAC, if you have a business large enough to have a political action committee, that's the only two sources for money for any political candidate in Arkansas. All right? So we do a lot of that. We've got three clients, I guess, that participate, maybe four. And our typical, just to give you an example, our typical election cycle, we're handing out around 50 to 60,000 a year to candidates, targeted candidates.
All four of our clients, 3 or 4.
Not buying anything other than a return phone call. That's about all you can get for it, you know. And then we attend hours and hours of boring meetings just for the opportunity to have 3 minutes with a senator often, or to leave a white paper with a House member. So, let me see. You'll have to excuse my drainage here. I gotta issue going on with my throat and allergies. Let's see. Okay. Example of psychologist advocacy. Great example of good lobbying, not on our part, because all we were doing for you in 2021 was advising Glenn White and Tisha. And as you may know, the 2021 session, you guys passed your own compact law, SIPAC, Arkansas. It's Act 883. And you guys know what this does. I don't have to explain that to you, but all the states that are participating in SIPAC currently are at 42. So that gives you a lot of flexibility of where you can practice without having to pick up new licenses, new permits, whatever it is you have to do. The compact reduces regulatory barriers and increases access to mental health care by enabling psychologists to provide services in other SIPAC states. Provides a lot of flexibility in practice, professional mobility, obviously, and regulatory efficiency, and enhanced collaboration. And what's so great about that is these two folks, Tisha and Glenn, really ran the court with that legislation. Recall what was happening in 2021. We were in the midst of COVID. Legislators didn't even allow us to come up on many days. They had glass cages that they sat behind. I still wish they had those, actually. But you couldn't really access them at all. They discouraged us all from standing around in the hallways, that sort of thing. But Glenn took the bull by the horns and found a great sponsor in Dr. Lee Johnson.
Yes.
Yep, and so that went through smooth. He would call me about 3 times a week asking advice, and I'd call Courtney and say, what do you think we need now? And we worked it all out, but it was a good piece of work there. Citizen advocacy, very minimal paid advocacy in that case. Excuse me. Did I miss something here? I guess not. So that was 2021. Also in 2021, the legislature passed Act 802, which created this legislative study group to look at mental health issues. And that was a 2-year stint for that group. And in 2023, our most recent regular session, we had, I think, 4 or 5 acts I'm going to talk about. Act 253, which directs a Medicaid program to provide supplemental reimbursement for physicians in the R-Home program at DHS. The Counseling Compact, they came in 2023 after you guys blazed a trail on that. And we sort of coordinated our efforts with another client along with counselors and one other group. I forgot who the third group was. All got compacts last session. More legislation that sort of has to do with counseling and psychology. Act 494, requiring Medicaid and insurance coverage of behavioral health services. Act 316, mandates that depression screening for birth mothers at the time of birth and requires insurance companies to pay for that. And Act, can't read this, that's 61, creates a specialty court for families involved in dependency neglect proceedings affected by substance abuse. Those were all counseling-related, psychology-related legislation. And then this last one, Act 522, reestablished that previous task force on mental health. So we had it in 2021. They sort of began to pull resources together. And then they created the task force, and that task force is still functioning today. You see this list of participants in that: legislators, healthcare providers, et cetera, educators, law enforcement. I think you participated in that time or two?
The next meeting is
October 14th. So what are they going to do on October 14th? Well, we can tell you that we have recently visited with Deanne Vaught, chairman of that committee, along with Fran Cavanaugh. And I know I was trying to run Deanne down for you for 2 months before I finally went to a fundraiser. You know, here's a check. Let me talk to you a minute. Deanne and it told me, Representative Vaught told me that they had a list of legislation for this coming session, 2025. And she and Fran were going to sit down sometime, that was 2 weeks ago, sometime between now and I guess before your next meeting, and prioritize those bills, see which ones are doable, which ones maybe needs more work. And then I'm guessing that they're going to present those bills to you at your next meeting for review. And so we'll take it from there.
Luckily, they've also, I think, pulled in Representative Hudson. She's been coming to those meetings.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
Good.
she's a good friend.
This is a good choice.
Right, yeah. She's very bright, yeah. All right.
Pulled in who? Representative Hudson. Ashley Hudson.
She's nice.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's out in West Little Rock.
So going forward in this 2025 session, this legislative task force that's focusing on mental health. This is a great opportunity for you as psychologists to become involved in the activities and become involved in creating new policy for the state. Arkansas is kind of at that prime moment, I think, where everyone is pointing to mental health as a real dire need. We have very little funding in the state that goes for that, very little focus in the past. But now, whether it's a plethora of guns and school violence and bullying, or whether it's just worn out old folks like myself needing some mental health, there's a real understanding, I think, at this moment in time with Arkansas legislators that we've got to move forward with promoting mental health. So I would encourage you to be active within this organization. This is a great organization for bringing people together on that subject matter. Associations, they fit the bill for the U.S. Constitution's First Amendment, which is the right to gather together to petition your government for change. I mean, that's all part of your fundamental rights, and our associations are great about consolidating that into one good effort. So you can benefit from your profession from a policy influence standpoint, professional recognition, resource allocation, and professional development. So I encourage you to stay engaged. And I guess, Tisha, you're going to still be the point person on that, or?
Yes.
Yeah, Courtney, go ahead.
Well,
Come on up here.
you sure? Well, that's something we've talked about, and many of you may already know about the Medicaid sustainability. It's not on the PowerPoint, but the Medicaid sustainability report came out in June or July. We're still not sure what it's going to do. They're looking at the passes, so that's one of the things they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do with it. They're recommendations, so it's nothing's in stone. And again, all of that bears watching just with DHS. All of those are real important things. We continue to think that they're looking to shrink everything and get under a single payer, and these are things y'all talk about and know about in your business, so I'm not going to coach you on it. But if you can get that sustainability review, it's on the DHS webpage, and some of you can probably actually figure out what they're talking about. The other piece of that is we don't know, but we think they're going to have a host of bills in 25. This is the session in 25. So we don't know what those bills will look like, but y'all will certainly, your association and all the associations are going to need to weigh in on what that does to you, because in all likelihood, they'll continue to shrink services.
That's where it goes back to the allocation of resources.
Yeah, exactly. I shouldn't say shrink, that's the wrong word, but, it's the fight over the pie, and your piece of it, so.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Just talked a few minutes ago about this mental health group that they're meeting, and they're coming up with these, concerns and things that they want to address to amplify mental health services in Arkansas. Yet, what I heard you just say is the legislature wants to shrink those resources.
I think the administration
Well-
wants to shrink.
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, the timing on all this is that usually by September, all state agencies have to submit their budgets and their bills, not their budget, pardon me, their bills for the next session to the governor's office for review. And then by October, right now, the governor kind of check marks the ones that she approves and the others go in the hopper. And you don't see those again. So that the command that she gave to, the suggestion that she gave to agency heads several months ago was zero growth in your budgets. That includes DHS, all right? So you stop and think about it. Her overall budget for the entire state was 1.7% growth, which is half what the current rate of inflation is. So even at best, if all you're doing is the same, you get less money. You got less money to play with. So
And there's another tax cut coming. I
Tax cut
think
coming,
we're
yes.
pretty clear on that. That's been publicly stated, so.
but I think legislators themselves recognize that we've got to do something. How we do it in a zero growth environment is their problem right now.
And Tish is meeting with them already from so that's good. All
Courtney,
right.
what do you got there?
I'm annoying them.
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, well, this is the 94th General Assembly makeup right now. These folks that we have here, you can see the difference. I mean, Democrats are pretty well non-existent. They got just enough folks there to make a little racket, but not influence anything. And so it is just the opposite of the way it was when I was in the House. Those numbers are almost exactly the opposite. The Democrats owned it then. The Democrats owned the responsibility then. The Republicans do now. That is not going to change in 1 month's time. With the election, there may be, I think there's maybe one seat in the House that may flip in the Delta, and one seat in the House Northwest Arkansas that may flip. From Republican to Dem, and over in the Delta, Dem to R. So.
B to R.
Right. So you're kind of looking at the same cast of ne'er-do-wells. That's wrong. That's from a previous 68 days. We're obviously down 30. I gave this presentation a while back too. So what are we voting for? And I know you guys and gals are a little more savvy than most people on the street, but we're voting for all 100 House members. We're voting for 18 of 35 senators. Okay? That's a big bunch of folks, but very little competition, very little real change is going to happen. Very few people were term limited this session. We also have a race for the lone constitutional officer, state treasurer's office. You may remember a guy by the name of Mark Lowry was their state treasurer. Did a great job as former legislator, but he died in office. And the governor appointed Larry Walther to fill out his term. And Larry Walther's a Boy Scout knife for the state government. He fills every role, does it marvelously, but he is tired and he's getting remarried and he's starting a new life. So he's out, and so we have this race with John Thurston, who's our current Secretary of State, John Pagan, former state senator, an attorney, and Michael Paco. Is it pronounced that Paco? I think it's Paco. We've seen him around the Capitol. I just never figured out how to pronounce his name. Who's actually running as a libertarian, and he has a PhD in economics. He's an economic forecaster, bright guy. He comes down there and testifies a lot. So that's your choice on treasurer. All of them are, in my opinion, very well qualified. John Thurston has had a few, bumps in the road recently on petition drives that he's certified and then uncertified, and so, made a mistake, let's certify. So he's got some baggage he's carrying right now. The other interesting race is the Supreme Court Justice race. And what you have here is Karen Baker, who's running for the Supreme Court Chief Justice, versus Rhonda Wood. They're both on the Supreme Court now, okay? And they're vying to see who's going to take, what's his name of this place? Kemp, yeah. Dan Kemp, who's been a marvelous, I think, marvelous Chief Justice. And then you got all this going on from this last 2 weeks about, of the 7 Supreme Court justices, 6 of them are now under ethics violations investigations, with 5 of them accusing one and 2 of them accusing the other 5, and so they're all in this ethics commission. It's bizarre, and nobody really knows what started it. I mean, it's a FOIA request. Messy bunch. Okay, so that's the people that you're voting on. On ballot issues, we heard a lot of ballot issues early on. The only one we know for sure today that will be on there is one we can all agree with, and that is using the lottery money for VOTEC school students rather than just 4-year college, 2-year college. So that's, I think, one everyone agrees with. Ballot issues that are not going to be on the ballot that we heard about was right to government transparency. That's the FOIA, embedding the FOIA within the Constitution. That fell by the wayside. School standards for LEARNs. It wasn't undoing LEARNs. It was simply saying test them the same way you test public school students. And it had a few other things in there. That fell by the wayside. It came up short on signatures. Feminine hygiene and adult diapers for a sales tax initiative. I signed off on that, probably me and 12 other people. Anyway, it didn't make it. Lower age requirement for historic vehicles. Why do we have to have a constitutional, I don't know. But anyway, that fell by the wayside. Absentee voting restrictions initiative. I never got into that, but it had to do with actually having to declare much earlier that you're going to do absentee voting than the current law requires. It did not make it. And then paper ballots, that was an attempt by this, your buddy, Conrad, not Conrad Hooper, Conrad, I forgot what his name is.
But it's not.
Yeah, old military colonel. Anyway, he
sort of a political gadfly.
Yeah, he's been around politics in Arkansas for decades. Anyway, they were doing that on a county-by-county basis. That wasn't statewide, and they chose 7 counties up in the Ozarks, and all 7 county clerks said, "Nah, going in the trash with that."
And what's interesting, they're now reviewing it in committee, which
Legislative
the
committee.
legislative committee. You're thinking, they say we want to see those signatures again. Back to the signatures about how you got that on there. So. It's sort of funny. I mean, Randy and I worked for people just but 20 years ago when they were getting everything over.
Yeah, moving them to voting machines.
Because everybody were doing paper ballots and cheating. So.
And every audit that they've ever done of voting machines, 100% accurate. Nobody's ever found. Anyway, what else is not on the ballot? The abortion initiative. Got plenty of signatures on the technicality. They were thrown out. That technicality was argued by Thurston, who's running for treasurer now. So that is not going to be on the ballot for you. Yet to be determined. Got 2 issues here. One is the citizens' initiative on the Polk County casino license. This is totally an Indian Wars debate being fought right here in Arkansas. Millions of dollars from the Choctaw, millions of dollars from the Cherokees. Out of all of their financial reports, of all those millions of dollars, one $100 check was written by a non-Indian tribe person. So we are seeing the last of the great Indian Wars right here in Arkansas. And then yet to be determined, even as we speak, is whether or not medical marijuana made it, because again, John Thurston can't decide whether to count certain signatures or not, and that is before the Supreme Court.
No, they've ordered him to go back and count those.
Order them to go back and count them, but again,
Okay.
depending upon that decision, whether or not there'll be enough signatures. Courtney's kind of high on that medical pot, you know. So what to expect from the 95th General Assembly? You want to cover this?
No, go
All
ahead.
right, go ahead.
You're on the roll.
What to expect? Just in general, you're going to see a shakeup in the House committees. I'm sorry, I forgot about the microphone. You're going to see a shakeup in the House committees. We've had the same Speaker of the House for 6 years now. 6 years. Matthew Shepard from Courtney Shepard's neck of the woods, El Dorado. He's going to remain in the House, but not running for Speaker of the House. We've got a great guy coming in from Cabot, Brian Evans, extremely sharp.
We worked with Representative.
That's right, I remember that. I remember that very impressive meeting he was at. But I think Brian will have to respond to a lot of pent-up demand for committee assignments, committee chairmanships from these younger guys and gals who've come in since Matthew was first elected Speaker of the House 6 years ago. And there's by golly, I'm as good as anyone up there. I deserve a chairmanship. So you're going to see some changes there. Yeah, go ahead.
Just make a point, as you're talking about this group, it is completely term limited up there now. When I came in and right after Randy was in, term limits were passed. So now, all the guys, back to Randy's point, all those guys and gals that think they're, I'm going to be here for my little term limited 3 or 4 years. I want to be on a committee, or I want to be a chair or a vice chair or whatever. So that just sort of gets that churn going where everybody wants to get in there, and they're going to be gone here in a few years because of term limits.
Good point. We've already talked about the zero budget mandate that the governor sent out several months ago. So you're not going to see a lot of innovative thinking. You're not going to see a lot of agency heads sticking their heads above the log, so to speak. Not a lot of risk taking anywhere. There's going to be a focus on higher education, which you think, probably sent. And the only thing we have to go by that is the governor making some comment about 2-3 weeks ago. We really like to focus on higher ed, but nobody's seen any proposals. And to your point on higher ed the other day, which I thought was very valuable.
Go ahead.
No, you expressed a lot better than I did.
Well, I don't know that I did, but yeah, they're talking about bringing in higher ed for training kids to be,
Free thinkers?
well, yeah, that's as good as any, but it's the whole woke thing down on higher ed. And we don't know that that's what it is, but that sort of strikes us as
Sounds like a good excuse.
what it might be.
I keep thinking back to when the governor was proposing, in that run-up to her first session, and she was a candidate for governor, and literally it was 3 weeks before the election when the words parochial school left her mouth. Before that, it was, we're going to empower parents to make decisions for their kids. What the hell does that mean, Well, now we know. It's parochial schools and private schools and home schools and everything else that's coming out of public school money. So whenever someone just says, we need to focus on higher ed, you got to scratch your head and wonder, what's that one going to mean, to Courtney's point. I think there'll be some tinkering with LEARNs. I've got heartburn with LEARNs like it is, but still, they're not going to change it dramatically, but they may try to address maybe some of that testing standard issues, some of those things that cropped up in the pile of signatures, which actually they had enough to put it on the ballot, but they did not pass the Thurston test. Further efforts to degrade DEI and ESG efforts in the private sector. Everybody knows what this is, those 3 initials, that alphabet. Legislature is really at war with woke. They're really telling private businesses how to invest their money. They're really, in Arkansas, if you are on the list of people who boycott Israel. You can't be a state contractor if you, there's a whole litany of things. If you do business with the Chinese, they're going to look at you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It took me 6 months to get it.
I'm sorry. ESG?
Yes.
Environment, social, and governance. So this framework, we're looking at potential investments in a way that addresses those issues in the public district.
Well, they need one of the military communities, because the Air Force Base right now has like a lockdown on how they handle purchasing from any businesses, or certain businesses that are doing tech with the Chinese government already.
Right.
I mean, that's like something that's huge up there.
Right.
So that's a current.
Right, exactly.
At the federal
Right.
level, and so they can't.
And probably at the federal level is where it needs to stay, but what we're finding is like Arkansas is, you got a whole little task force that looks at Chinese ownership of property in Arkansas now. And
And
it
if
was,
it's over 50%, if it's 50.5%, then they.
call me cynical, but I think it was 2 months ago that Walmart announced, hey, we don't care what you guys think about DEI. We're going to continue our initiatives to diversify our employment base. We love our customers. Our customers are diverse. They're not all white males, We're going to continue that regardless of what Arkansas thinks or any other state thinks. I swear it wasn't 2 weeks later that all of a sudden this company owned by a Lee, L-I, in northwest Arkansas, gets on the hit list for this task force to investigate Chinese-owned properties. Now, guess what Lee does? They are a major supplier for Walmart. Now, everybody, if you look at the emails that were FOIA'd, you realize that the Attorney General and the Governor's staff both knew exactly who Lee was and what he did before they initiated the investigation. Call me cynical. I think that's a shot over the bow. If you're not going to play ball with us on DEI, we're going to catch you on the Chinese side of that coin. It's a tangled mess there. I may be way off, but it was too timely.
Well, and to Randy's point, we were just not lectured, but on a regular conference call we have the last Friday or the first Friday of each month, which we had this morning at 8, and we were told, look, if this question comes up, we're an international company, and this is what we're doing. This is, we kind of have to do it. It's kind of what it amounts to.
But that's not going to go away. That's just a whipping child for a certain group of our legislators. Mixing religion in schools, we've seen this over the course of the last 10 years. Our least favorite senator of all time, Jason Rapert, promoting that early on. He's no longer with the legislature, but he's got his own little bullhorn pulpit that he.
He's on the library.
He's on the library board. He also has this National Association of Christian Legislators, and so if you go to his Facebook site, it's day after day of hammering on how we need to get back to the old-time religion here in Arkansas. Amen. And I think you're going to see a continuation of more pressure on local governments. And what does that mean? Well, when I was in the legislature, I served on city council, Courtney did too, but we always were told that it's the government that's closest to the people is the best able to solve people's problems. But what we're seeing now is the sort of pushback on municipal governments, because guess what? The larger the municipalities become, the more democratic they become, okay? And they're more democratic in Little Rock, more democratic in Fayetteville. And a way to sort of curb their pushing democratic principles is to curb the authority of all local governments. And so we saw it most recently on crypto mining. Before anyone ever knew what crypto mining was, the legislature was already saying, you locals, you can't govern on that. That's our authority, not yours. And it blew up on them. We've seen it on pit bulls. We've seen it on local governments regulating pit bulls in their community, on them regulating B&B, short-term rentals. You know, that one didn't pass, but it had a lot of legs. So every opportunity that they have to take a little authority away from the local governments, they're going to. And that's pretty much what I've got. We are here to answer any questions you may have. I know we ran long, and I'm sorry about that. So,
We got 2 minutes.
yes, sir.
We have a political action committee, and it's separate, obviously, financially from the association,
Mhm.
because the association cannot directly contribute to a campaign. But I act.
From the PAC, and you yourself can,
Right.
but your business cannot.
And we have very few people who call themselves professionals or whatever that want to get involved, these politicians,
Mhm.
but they don't realize how important it is.
It is.
Get to know their local senator, their local House of Representatives.
Absolutely.
person, so that we, as a PAC, even could probably even dollars.
Yeah.
Show them that we give some support.
Yep.
How might we get that information, that which of these legislators that we might want to be able to support?
Yeah, well, Courtney and I actually do a lot of that with our other handful of
We'll make
clients
you a
who do
list.
participate. Yeah, we actually come up with a list.
Yeah.
And we don't just say, hey, give that money to them because Courtney knows them. We actually give our clients reasons. We usually have 5 or 6
Your bills
reasons.
come into that
Yeah.
committee, that's the committee, members.
And as a way of justifying the contribution. And we'll even plug in a number, and depending upon your budget, you know, maybe $50 or maybe $500, but
Right. And is it still with the state income tax, do you still get $100
mhm,
deduction right off the top as a credit?
mhm,
We're donating up to that amount.
Right.
So let's-
Yep.
We need to get that information.
Yeah.
So if you Get $100 tax credit.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Sorry, will you repeat that just so that the people can hear?
I'm sorry.
The tax.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And just give you an example. A long time ago, Courtney and I represented an optometry group. I forgot which. Anyway, they were.
three of them.
Yeah, we were always at odds with the local or the optometrist in the state because they had a lock. Anybody in here got an optometrist in their family? They had a lock on selling contact lenses. So our client could sell them in other states, you know, by, through the internet and mail, depending upon, you know, the person's prescription. But here in Arkansas, you could not, and I don't think you still can do that. It was illegal to do it, so we're always at odds. So our client asked me one time, why in the world are those folks so strong with Governor Huckabee? Well, I really don't know. Boy, I spent a day and a half kind of going through financial records, and at one point, every 7th check the governor was receiving was a $100 check from a local optometrist, or a $250 check. It was nickel and dime stuff, but the names were showing up so often, and it was a very structured association that pretty well pulled that money in and bundled it and handed it off. So,
You know, let me make one point, and I love where you're going with that. I think that's absolutely the thing to do. But there's nothing wrong with just writing a thank you note. I saw the vote you took on
Yeah,
such
yeah,
and
yeah.
such. We've talked about you at our association meeting, keep up the good work, yada, 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 or even less, just a thank you. And that means a lot to them. And, you know, money helps.
money helps. Go to their events, go to their fundraisers. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
What we discovered was that they just like the recognition.
Yes, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. That's why they ran for office. That's
Yep,
why
you got
Randy ran anyway.
So we've got just a few minutes and I want to give us some break time in between, and I do not want us to miss our next presentation. As the government relations chair, I just want to reiterate just how imperative it is that we have Randy and Courtney on our side. You just heard, they know they can put their head to the rail tracks and they can hear, they know what's going on the Hill. I'm limited. I work for a state entity. So my ability to actually go and interact a lot with legislators is limited because of my job. And so their ability to kind of help keep us informed of what's going on. They do a fabulous job of tracking bills and keeping us in the know about things that are going on. And as you guys can see, it's so much more than just the legislative session. Like all year long, we've got stuff with Medicaid. The the mental health work group has been meeting, and they will have legislation. And we have we have legislation to ask them about too. And so they're really willing to listen. And that the name, the little R or D besides their name doesn't necessarily matter depending on the issue. Like I've had really great working relationships with many legislators that have R's by their name. So it's really important that we build those relationships, and like they said, that they know who we are. For the first time ever, I was at a meeting with DHS yesterday, and they don't know what neuropsychologists do. They don't know what an assessment is. And so I was able to talk to them and give them information about this is what you're paying for. And this is how your policies are restricting what kids are getting. But if we aren't able to get in front of those people, they don't know. They hear words, but they don't know what those words mean. So it's really, really important that we, continue this work. And, many hands make light work. So, the more people we have involved, the more that we can do. And, like they said, we have been really restricted for a lot of years because it's been only volunteer-based. And Randy and Courtney generously nearly just donated their time to help us. Now that we have them as our retained lobbyists, I call them, I can text them, I can email them. They're always incredibly helpful. I'll just say, as one example of that, I've had several members and psychologists reach out and be like, I want to be on the psychology board. And I put in my application, but I haven't heard anything back. And I was like, yeah, starting with Governor Hutchinson's administration, there was sort of a lockdown, and we don't really know what's happening with that anymore. So I reached out to Randy, and I was like, do you know, who's in charge of doing this at the governor's office and kind of what the process is? And he did some reconnaissance for me, made some phone calls, tracked down Melody, I think is her name, and I got her in touch with me. And I talked to her, and she said, oh my gosh, please help us. We have all these applications, and we don't know who to appoint. Please, ArPA, give us some recommendations. But we had been trying for months, and nobody knew, and not even the board. I would ask the board, who does this? We don't know. So, just, a text or an email to Randy, and, a few weeks later, we have an answer, and now we're developing a process. So, and that's a big deal to psychology, right? It's a big deal who is on our board, and that our board is functioning. And, kudos to our board members who have continued to keep working on the board, even after their terms have expired, or done a lot of work in the last few years, during these transitions.
So are they going to take ARPA's recommendation like they did in the past?
I don't know if they are going to, they're going to consider our recommendation. I have no idea if that means who we ask is going to get appointed, but we have a point person. She knows who we are. She is asking for our recommendations. We are going to send recommendations by the end of the year. And we're working on our process for doing that right now.
I think that the concern on Tish's part was that the state law is very structured on when those recommendations could be made. And we had missed all deadlines, and yet we had a lot of vacancies. So basically, the government send us what you got. We'd be happy to take it, tickled to take it. So.
Yeah.
Like in the past, the board would just submit those recommendations when you knew that they were open.
Yeah, and we had done that. We did that during Governor Hutchinson's administration, but nothing happened with those recommendations for a long
Well, as you
time.
can imagine, though, there's a lot of people lining up to get on those.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
didn't she say that she had, I want to say it's 27 applications?
Yeah, I mean, they have applications, but they don't know how to
They didn't
sort
have
through
to
the
see.
applications. But the example is just that, whenever we have people on our side who know how government works, who knows how to find who's the person to talk to, we can get things done. Me personally, or you personally, or, most of us, we don't have the inside to, to get the answers. And it may not be that there's something obstructive happening, it's that we don't know who to talk to. So it's just really important to do that.
Let me make two quick suggestions of ways you can help. Ways you can help Tisha and myself and Courtney. I'm flipping her bills usually every day during the session. I know she probably needs more than her eyes to look at those. And if someone on the board, or even not on the board, if you've got a long history of the profession, that can look at a bill and say, no problem here, maybe, just to alert us so we know to pay more attention to it. Otherwise, it's going to get lost in the stack. That's one way. Second way, the second thing you can help us with is we have had times, it happens every session, where we will have a client issue pop up and almost immediately have to have a response. And we had that with surveyors one time. A bill had been filed, we were all aware of it, and all of a sudden the sponsor was going to run the bill. And I called my guy and said, well, I'm on the road, let me take this exit right here. And he's at the Capitol, right there. He's driving past the Capitol, wasn't planning on coming by. Got him with the sponsor of the bill, we got our changes made, and we're good to go. So it's almost like you need a quick reaction force of maybe 3 or 4 people who are right here local, who can do that sort of thing and can speak. We hand you a piece of white paper, like I say, they'll listen to us, but they will really listen to you if you show up.
And that
Have
won't
that and
happen
somebody to review bills. Those two things I see as a need for all of my clients.
So I want to make an announcement. If you guys are here, surely you have gotten emails about our modernization fund that goes towards our directorate and our website and all the new cool things we're doing. Randy and Courtney are part of our directorate as our lobbyists, so it helps to fund our surprise, no, helps to fund and keep that going, really to kind of help supplement what we've been doing for this year and to help us to get to where we can be more sustainable. We currently have $3,470 that have been donated. 11 people have donated so far. We've had a generous donation from Dr. Griffin, which we're very grateful for. And I am 100% sure that we got my match, so we'll add another $500 to that. Please think about all of these things we've talked about and how, if the bare minimum thing that we can do is, if you can't spend any time and you don't really want to think about this and you're like, please don't talk to me about this, like if I come and bother you and you give me some money, I'll be like, okay, never mind. Like, I'll leave you alone. So
I think one thing to think about with this is, I don't know if you guys ever search online, what's the best state to live in when you're a psychologist? Because you're frustrated with work or government or something like that. But wouldn't it be cool if Arkansas was number one? We have bills and laws in place, we have an organization that really supports psychologists, we have a lot of growth, and that's part of what all of this is just making it easier to do our jobs well.